Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We've got Professor Martin Uhomoibi here with us, the former Permanent Secretary, Minister of Finance, former Under-Secretary General for UN, and also former President, UN Human Rights Council. Good morning, sir. Thank you for coming on. Which one did I mix up?
Good morning, my dear. PAMSEC, Minister of Finance, Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Foreign Affairs.
I would have been a richer person.
Yeah. Foreign Affairs. Okay, it's Foreign Affairs that was in my head. I don't know where finance came from. It's Foreign Affairs here.
You're thinking of money.
What can you do without that? Okay. The cost of living compensation must have stuck somewhere in the back of my mind. Okay. But yeah, good morning and happy Easter to you. Happy Easter Monday continues today.
Thank you.
And so just having a broad look, because I mean, if you look through some of the dailies today, lots of people thinking, oh yes, it's Easter, but the economy, so that question mark is there. Governance always comes on. But you try to contribute a lot, still are in different ways really, to ensure things improve, but in Edo State, where you had a foray. So if you could start with, just give us a little bit of background. What transpired? I mean, yes, the primaries, that's gone now, but what would you say was the experience for you? Because there are several people who are looking to see, do I take that step? Can I afford to? Should I just leave it, let things go the way they are? What would you tell them?
Well, thank you very much, Chamberlain, and Marco, it's a pleasure to be here, and happy
it's good to see you, Prof.
Feast of the Resurrection of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Thank you. So we are still very much in that mood, in spite of the challenges that our country faces at this time. And we too are going through very, very severe crisis, including even climate change. I've never experienced the kind of heat in Abuja. Mm-hmm. So everything is on fire, literally. But our spirit should also be fired by that desire to make a difference. And that is background to my own, what I just did in Edo State. I didn't expect a miracle to happen. It doesn't happen like that in history. We've just gone through the feast of, in the Catholic Church, it's called the Triduum. Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and then the Feast of the Resurrection. See what Christ, who is God, went through. The people of Israel, 2,000 years ago, they preferred Barabbas, who was a known thief, acclaimed thief, to Jesus, who was a healer, who multiplied loaves, who raised Lazarus from the grave. Pontius Pilate had power over Christ given to him by God. But what did he do with it? He knew the truth, but he couldn't stand up for the truth, and asked that Christ be killed. So what I'm trying to say is that politics and history did not begin today. So when I was going into this, of course, I had all this as my background, and I knew that betrayal was a norm in politics. So it didn't really surprise me.
Were you betrayed?
Yes, because you do. Betrayal is part of politics, really. That is, you hope for you trust in somebody and you hope in something, and then you are let down. So that's always part of it. So
I know. So
what I'm saying, I don't want to be too specific in this case at this time, but let us look into what happened in Edo State.
Okay.
Why did I go into the race? I went into the race because I'm an unapologetic Nigerian, born out of my own faith in God, that God did not make a mistake making me a Nigerian. So I can't reinvent myself, so to speak. And in the last day, I'll be charged on 2 platforms by him after my death, what you did and what you failed to do. So now I've passed that test. I did not fail to try to make a difference. But as I told people at the stadium, I was given 3 minutes to talk, or 2 minutes to talk. And I told them, I said, it is your choice. You have a choice to make, and you must take responsibility for your choice. Every choice has a consequence. As you make your bed, so shall you lie. So don't blame God, don't blame anybody for the choice that you make. But in Nigerian politics, I don't know how many people are actually aware of that reality. We think that God, Nigeria, we can pray 365 days in a year. But once you have made a choice, you have chosen who should lead you, Take responsibility.
Are we excusable if we probably blame it on the circumstances or the factors that make us take the decision in terms of the people we elect? Can the people be excusable in that regard?
No, you must take full responsibility for your action. Ignorance is no excuse for.
But is it really that straightforward in our own case in this country?
No, we must take responsibility. It's very straightforward. But people are not wanting to take responsibility, and they sell their soul, their conscience for money. The mercantilists are in charge. What money cannot buy, more money can buy. And because poverty has been weaponized, most people are vulnerable to it. But the difference will come when Nigerians begin to take full responsibility for their actions and know that it is not just about you, it's about your children. Where were we in the 60s? In my own case, I know my own history very well, and it's actually documented. But is that where we are today? Why are we where we are? A whole lot of factors are responsible, but we must be conscious of these factors and be ready to join and make a difference. Japa is not a solution, for example. Most young people today want to japa. Japa to where? You know where you are japaing to? So it is a collective responsibility, and we all must take responsibility for what goes on in our country. There would have been no free South Africa today without a Mandela. Mandela was in jail for 27 years. Paul Kagame has made all the difference in Rwanda. Go and read his history and find out what he did. Christ went through what he went through, was stripped naked, a king himself. But even the cross he carried, which was his deathbed, was not even his own. So we must learn to sacrifice. We must have the courage and the guts to challenge a norm that is not acceptable to us and play your part in that process.
Well, I'm glad that we can draw parallels between our politics and you know, what happened some over 2,000 years ago. And I'm hoping that, you know, many more people will continue to sit and reflect on how their faith connects with what it is, the choices that they make on a daily basis. But I'm sure that also when you went into politics, I do not know what your expectations were. You've spoken about betrayal. I do not know if you're talking about betrayal on a general terms. Is it betrayal from people? Is it the process itself that was not fair to you? Precisely what did you find? I think that's a curiosity that bothers me this morning.
A book is coming out on this very shortly. So unless you pay the copyright for it, I won't tell you this. But it is a mixture of all of these. It's a combination of all of these factors.
I won't mind paying for a sneak peek.
It's a combination of all these factors. But also we underestimate politics generally in Nigeria. And because I've talked about the Nigerian DNA. There is a Nigerian DNA. Nigerian DNA is one of our DNA is contentment. We are very contented people. We are garrulous people. We are happy people. And because of where we are located, we really don't.
Doesn't that breed docility?
In a sense, yes, but it will come to an end someday when you will have to say, hey, enough is enough. And that will come when people like you and I, who have a sense of history, who are in a position to influence public opinion and take the action that we are supposed to take.
Link it for us, Prof, because historically too, we've had our own fair share of young people in governance. Because now people say, look, even in West Africa here, you've got a Senegal's case. So for young people who may think, oh no, throw our hands up in the air and think, these old people will not just let us have a country that we all will love to stay in and not run away. So what's the distinctive difference between our case and a Senegal, for instance?
Well, Nigeria is a very unique country. And you talk about Senegal. Senegal, fire is being celebrated, it's 44 years. But we had a Gowon in 1966-67, thereabout, who was 32 when he became the head of the world's most populous black nation. And 9 years of Gowon here was truly historic. As a historian, I can look at everything comprehensively. And the decisions he took were quite revolutionary and enduring. He broke the regions into states. was the one who did that. The Civil War, he led it and he fought it. Came up with the doctrine of no victor, no vanquished. And God has kept him alive even to this day. So, JSP, who was governor of Rivers State, that is now a combination of Cross Rivers and all of that, was 23. So, Senegal, yes, 44 for an democratically elected president. So that is truly remarkable. And democracies are not built overnight. Decades, centuries it takes to build democracy. I'm not apologizing for where we are in our country, because we could do a lot better than we have done. But as I said, we have to be patient. We also have to know that it is a collective responsibility. It's not just good to sit in the ivory tower and criticize others, lament and wail in your bedroom. No. Come on the stage, experience it, prevent a contradiction to the nincompoops who you think are there. And that is how change will come. But it will be wrong to think that it can happen overnight. Even the so-called democracies. When were black people able to vote in America? After how many centuries or decades of democracy? And when did women begin to vote in the United Kingdom? After many years of democracy. But in our country here, we've done quite a bit. But we need to do more. And that will come from people who have knowledge, who have competence, who have integrity. Going away from the ivory tower and being on the stage and causing a stir in that stage.
It's interesting you talk about Senegal, because the elections in Senegal were quite remarkable. It wasn't just about the election of the youngest president-elect now, because he's yet to be sworn in, on the African continent. It wasn't just about that. It was also about the process that led to that, because initially there were fears that Macky Sall wanted to extend his tenure and seek a third term in office. But we saw how the country's constitutional court stood against that and said he had to exit. It gets a new president elected before the expiration of his tenure tomorrow, interestingly. And now, they now have a new president. We saw how there were protests, young people hitting the streets, insisting that the right thing had to be done. And eventually we also saw how the elections went very peacefully, amazingly peacefully. When you look at all of the upheavals that had trailed it. So when you look at how Senegal, which got its independence at the same time we got ours in 1960, they also became a republic in 1963, moving, and they have never experienced a coup, since 1960, having what it is that they have right now. You have to ask, what exactly is different? If we talk about colonialism, they experienced it. If we talk about a lot of things, they have also been through the African experience. As a matter of fact, they're still not completely free of the French influence on their country. So what exactly makes them a little different, or their own democracy a little different from what we practice? No,
I totally applaud and commend what has happened in Senegal. And it is something to be emulated by other African countries. So what I'm saying about Senegal really is not Nigeria. Nigeria is what Nigeria is. 236 or 276 ethnic nationalities, speaking over 500 languages, in one space called Nigeria. The centers of Africa's most ancient empires and kingdoms are here. The most populous nation on earth, diverse, fabricated by some alien powers, the target of so many conspiracies and intrigues, internal, but actually more external. This is not an apology for why we are where we are. But historical reasons, I'm just saying that yes, Senegal is doing well, but Nigeria's problem is complex and complicated. It would require all of us, people who have sense in their heads, a leadership process that is transparent, that makes sure that we put our best foot forward. Sadly, neo-colonial countries have not quite been able to do that, because those who have left hang around, and I don't blame them, because external relations is about interests. So if you don't identify your own interest, take responsibility for failure to identify your own interest. What happened to Murtala Muhammad? 34 days after he made his statement, historic statement in Addis Ababa that Africa had come of age. 34 days later, there was a coup in Lagos and he died. So, where are all those people? So I'm saying that, yes, we have to rise. We have to, there's something we used to call in those days as students in where I went to school, we call it functional stupidity. It's strategic wisdom, actually. We've thrown that away as Africans. India was colonized. Where is India today in the sphere of things? Korea, Japan, all these people went through the process that we have gone through. Where are they today? What's wrong with us as a people? I think we need some circumspection, we need some retrospection. We need to also look at ourselves. What have you done yourself in your own little area? What have I done in my own little area? What can we do? How are we to do it? But let me assure you about this, that a solution must come. It will come. It is inevitable.
No,
by Nigerians, not foreigners. Because we are thinking that others are coming to build your country. No one will come to build your country. You have to build your country.
Even today, yesterday, as a matter of fact, not just yesterday, several days before yesterday, several reports that we get and see people getting into warehouses, looting the places, because they just feel, look, we've had it up to here. Enough of the rhetorics that these leaders have told us. This is the current situation that we face, and they think something has to give. Do you think that the leaders are taking that as sign enough? Because in response, it appears as though their response to this is to spend lots of money and give palliatives. And when you give that, they consume it today, tomorrow they look for something else. And you'd have thought that they were getting the sign. But if that's the sign they get, that appears to be missing the shot. What do we do? How do we ensure that, look, they get the right signs and take the right steps?
Well, nemo dat non quam habet. You cannot give what you do not have. The fool says in his heart, there is no God. Ignorance. You have three levels of ignorance. Those who do not know. Those who do not know that they do not know. A triple tragedy. Those who do not care that they do not know that they do not know. If you know that you do not know, then you know. If you do not know that you do not know, then that is sad. Then on top of that, if you do not care that you do not know that you do not know, come on. René Descartes, the French philosopher, said, cogito ergo sum. I know, therefore I am. So we have to take responsibility. I won't be tired of saying that. You and I, don't allow your vote to be bought. Somebody boasted, what money cannot buy, more money can buy. In Nigeria, what money cannot buy, more money can buy. And you fall victims to that. What do you have to offer when you're going into politics? There are three levels of leaderships. Philosopher kings, those who use violence and force to keep themselves in office, and the mercantilists. Mercantilists have billions to put on the table. Of course, when they go there, what do you expect to happen? They will make trillions out of that. So you decide for yourself what level we are in our country. But we have to come to a realization, and we will. It's inevitable. I have a thesis. The global ascendancy of Nigeria is unstoppable. Nobody can stop Nigeria.
But there's always a method to the madness. If we leave it to all and sundry, that'll be chaotic.
It will come. It will come. What is the definition of revolution? Revolutions happen.
Oh.
Revolutions happen.
Is it that type of revolution?
We have a saying in my language, the goats no get teeth. But when you press them onto the wall, it didn't go fight you back. We hope that that does not become our fate in history. I still believe that Nigerians are a dialoguing people, Nigeria are a sensible people, and that we are one country on earth that has never gone to war against any other country. Not that we have not been provoked. We have died for peace in other lands. Blessed are the peacemakers, they shall be called the sons of God. So we must renew our confidence, we must renew our hope, we must never ever give up. All of us have to be involved in the process, not just lament and wail in our bedrooms, and we must take the fight there and get there.
Ayo.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Prof, good morning and compliments of the season. You know, listening to you, the passion and everything that I hear, and even your courage to throw your heart in the ring as well. There's a question ringing in my head, perhaps, you know, born from the fact that you've worked, you know, outside Nigeria, representing Nigeria and all of that, and you are former president of the UN Human Rights Council. So when you say Nigeria is promising, Nigeria has potential, Nigeria has capacity and all those things, you've reeled out our CV as a nation, so to speak. The question in my head right now is, when I hear the word leadership, I envision the word vision. Where is Nigeria going? As at this morning, we saw reports that says that states, almost every state is owing. Serap is already calling them out on one thing or the other. Chamberlain picked out a story from the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper of youths, as he also asked you, picking on private and government warehouses here and there. It would seem like one of the dictums of the Bible, which the book of the faith that you profess says that where there is no vision, the people are unrestrained. So what is the Nigerian vision that people should work towards, run towards, and champion? Because unless there is something, we hear people, every politician, every leader say we want to make Nigeria great. To what end, a number of people will ask. If an organization has a vision, it is clearly written everywhere for everyone to carry along. Where is the Nigerian vision written? That the young people, the old people, the children can look forward to and say, this is where Nigeria is going. Every state is going towards that. Every ministry, department, and agency is working towards that.
Thank you very much. Our problem is not to do with constitution or policies or vision. Our problem is, and many people are saying this, so I'm not saying anything that's radical or revolutionary, it's leadership. Our problem is actually leadership, largely leadership, but also partly followers, because followers produce the kind of leader that we have. So, in a sense, I think we have a flawed leadership selection process. And that has been there since independence. I'm a historian, so I like to go back to history. Who were the three candidates in 1960? You know them. Who got there? You know who? Yaradua was the first graduate we had as president of this country, university graduate. I'm not saying that they hold a monopoly of wisdom, no. But that took 47 years. And after that, where did we revert to? Politics is key to development. Anyone who thinks that he can stay away from politics is making a mistake of his life. We all have to get involved. The problem of Nigeria is not that we have a constitution that is fantastic. Perhaps, and we've even heard people talking about restructuring. But when campaigning, they talk about restructuring. When they're now in office, what happens to the campaign plan of restructuring? Goes into abyss. And who is held accountable? No one is held accountable. So, thank you so very much for that. We have vision. We know where we want to head to. We want food on our table. We want a future for our children. We have brilliant people who excel everywhere in the world that they go to, except in their own country. What a paradox. The number one economy in Africa is the poverty capital of the world. What a joke.
Well, Prof, I don't know if I can reiterate that same question in this light. There are certain countries in the world, when you mention the name of that country, an image comes to mind. You mention India, even though it's almost similar to Nigeria in some cases. You think about technology. You mention China. You think about industrialization. You think about exporting human resources. You mention the United States, you have an image in your head. You mention the UK or Britain, you have an image in your head. You mention Russia. You mention Ukraine. Certain images come to your mind. You mention Sudan. An image comes to your mind. What's the image that should come to the mind of a Nigerian when the word Nigeria is mentioned? That's the question I'm asking.
Well, thank you very much. And you are asking, I think, the right person. I've been outside of this country as a diplomat. I was Nigeria's Palm Rep to the United Nations in Geneva. I was the first African to be elected president of the United Nations Human Rights Council. I was also simultaneously elected president of the World Intellectual Property Organization. I headed the Foreign Ministry of Nigeria for 5 years. I retired and I was appointed as Under-Secretary General of the United Nations to head the largest peacekeeping mission in the world, Sudan. So, with some authority, I can speak about how Nigeria is regarded outside. Nigeria, except by Nigerians, is held in the highest esteem. At the time I became president of those two organizations, it had not been done. But because I am a Nigerian who knew what he wanted to do, and who had the right credentials, I was elected. So if you do not put the right person there, nobody's going to say because you come from Nigeria, therefore you will get the respect you deserve. No. But Nigeria, Africa, the black race want a leadership that is Nigerian, but that is knowledgeable, competent, responsible, and up to its task. When Murtala did what he did to get independence for Angola, what was the crime of Murtala Mohammed? Before he got to Addis Ababa to make that historic statement that turned the tables in favor of MPLA, what was the consensus that was being built? Only Nigerians don't know how they are highly esteemed and regarded globally. The world knows. And that is why we are targets, metaphorically speaking, of those who do not want to see the black race make it.
Okay, then, so Prof,
in our responsibility.
In that regard, how do we communicate this high regard to the Nigerian? You know the example, the experience that the Nigerian is having. Chamberlain and Mokwe have asked you questions along that line. If we are so highly regarded outside, how come people feel differently within? And even Nigerians who have, as you said, jackpot out of the country, they don't feel the same about their country. How do we communicate this high regard? Liberate yourself
from mental slavery. Liberate yourself from mental slavery. That's all. It's part of education. It's education, mentorship. When you are not aware, the teaching of history was taken away from our curriculum 34 years ago. Why was that of interest to our friends from outside to take away the teaching of history from the curriculum of Nigeria? Was that a responsibility? And we fell for it. Who can you blame? If you don't know your history, how can you know your present? How will you be able to project your future? So the group of people who went to secondary schools 34 years ago till today have no sense of Nigerian history. I'm who I am today because I am a historian. I've written books on Nigerian history. I've taught history. I teach history. I profess history. So you can't tell me stories. Google my name and see what WikiLeaks wrote about me. 2008. So our problem, our fault, your fault, dear Brutus, is not in your stars, it's in yourselves who are underlings. If you do not know your history, if you don't know where you are coming from, you can be told anything about you and you will believe it. And I'm sorry, that is the victim of the black race.
Do you think we should begin to put it, I mean, this talk of history now, do you think we should begin, because there's also the recent conversation around our constitution, getting a new constitution. As we know, the National Assembly is already on the path to amending the current constitution, and there's always controversy around it. I'm just wondering, do you think that given just how very little of our history is known by the younger generation, do you think it is important to start putting it in books that little children can even begin to read?
It's already been done, actually. Some of us have written those books, 3 volumes of Nigerian history that have been read and been taught.
For toddlers?
No. Okay, yes, that I agree. We need to do that for toddlers and for young people. But it takes a leadership that knows the sense of the value of history, to initiate that, who are you going to tell that to now in the scheme of things? Who will prioritize that? So that's why I think it's very... Where would Rwanda be today without a Kagame?
Because they embrace their history.
They embrace their history. So that was one of the strategic things that was done against this country. The removal of history. Most of these people today don't know how we came together as Nigeria. Not to talk about the history of those who put us together, who fabricated this country called Nigeria. Was it born because they love Nigeria, so that you become great, so that you can compete with them? No, for their own interests. And I don't blame them. That's the essence of international relations. That's the interest of colonialism. It's about exploitation, control, and domination. Not charity. But having won independence, you must rise up. And the kind of country that you want to build it. Put your best foot forward. Prioritize excellence, since you cannot give what you do not have. And we are not doing that sufficiently in Nigeria.
Now, while we might argue that that is not exactly being experienced at the national level, at the state level, at the subnational level, where we still have very strong influences. I mean, you come from Edo State, where, you still have the ancient kingdom of Benin, the monarch who's been on the throne. They've maintained a very pure lineage, so to speak. How come these influences are still not as strongly felt as they ought to be, even at the subnational level?
Those who created democracy, and what did Fela call democracy? Then they crazy. Is there democracy that is democracy?
It's a demonstration of craze.
Of craze. Is there a democracy that is really democratic? Our colonial masters that were here, they have high place for their royalty. What happened to our own? He was exiled to Calabar, and he died in 2014 or thereabout, 1914. So, and the mental slavery, God bless, who was that great Bob Marley, from which we suffer, black race, I must say, because this is not just a Nigerian thing, it's an African thing. We've not fully accepted what independence is in thoughts and in actions, like our ancestors did. Our ancestors were wonderful people. And our traditional institutions survived colonial slavery. You cannot tell the Oba of Benin how to govern the kingdoms of Benin today. There's no university where he goes to learn. The Sultan of Sokoto does not go to any university to learn how to run the caliphate. The Oni of Ife does not go to university to learn how to be the Oni of Ife. But until I tell you that, according to so and so from Harvard, you will not even esteem what I have said. So what? As it is done in the United States, as it is done in Nigeria. Let me hear more of that in our lifestyle, in our way of doing things. That's what other countries who have made it have done. I'm not saying you should just, international relations is about collaboration, but there must be justice, there must be equity, and there must be balance and fair play. Not to look at me and assess me on the basis of the color of my skin, which you have no responsibility for, which is actually superior, actually, if I must say. Thank you.
One more thing before you go. What key thing would you like to see change in the way we play our politics here?
Leadership selection process. That's where our problem is.
Yeah, but it's a long,
it's fundamentally
huge process.
Flawed. And maybe someday, young people, the mass of our people and our women who hold a majority of the power in this country, but are systematically undermined, wake up and realize that they can bring about the change that this country needs. It will not happen. But I am optimistic it will happen. We are actually almost there. But those who are keeping us where they are not aware, and they shouldn't be aware. Thank you.
A fine place to live it, Professor Martin Uhomoibi, former Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I don't know where that finance came from last time. And also former Under-Secretary General for UN and former President, UN Human Rights Council. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Shabbat. It's such a pleasure. And Mark, God bless you. Thank you.
And did I say Happy Galilee? What did they say?
No, it's Happy Easter.
Happy Easter, not Galilee. No,
But
no.
today is Galilee. There's supposed to be something about that, isn't it, today? It continues the festivity.
Okay, well, I've not heard about Galilee, but that's where Christ was to meet his disciples in Galilee. Thank you.
All right. I appreciate your coming always, all the time, anyways.
It's a pleasure.